Hello, family history writers. Welcome to this week's edition of Storylines. Now, before we get started today, I want to let you know that we have opened the doors to new students in our flagship masterclass. The masterclass is a wonderful opportunity to learn to write your family history stories. We take you from the very beginning of organization right through to planning and writing those stories. We also let you connect up with other writers, and we have weekly coaching sessions. So don't delay. Now, there's only 20 seats available, and we're only opening up the doors for 1 week. So jump on in. And if you're floundering with your writing, this is a real opportunity to get focused. And what better time? We've got a little extra time these days, so it's a great time to dedicate to writing. So register today. Now, today we're going to discuss how to get that first draft down, and I'm going to give you some very specific steps for that. We're often very overwhelmed at taking that pile of research that we have and coming out the other end with a story. So our first step is to decide who is it that we are going to write about. Who's going to be our first story? That's right. We're not going to write about all our ancestors at once. We start with one ancestor at a time. So you're going to choose that one ancestor, one that's made some incredible contributions to your family history, one that's got a great story to tell. Now, step 2 is to organize the research for that ancestor. Bring it all together in one location, right? Because we have materials that are on our computer, we have materials, paper materials in files. We want it easily accessible, so we want to bring it all together in one place. If we have to look for things, it's going to be a real time waster while we're writing. Step 3 is to curate the information that you have from those materials. We're looking for some very specific information that's really going to help us get to know our ancestor. And we call this an ancestor sketch. We're pulling everything from our research, everything from their physical description to who they worked with, played with, interacted with. What kind of organizations did they belong to? How did they react and respond to various events in their lives? What does that tell us about them? All of this information can help us to get inside their heads and really get to know them. And that's an important step before we begin to write about them. Now, step 4 is to create an outline. You need to outline your story, identify what the story is, because we're not going to write a birth to death tale. How we do this is done through several steps. It's at looking at goals, motivations, and stakes of your ancestor. And then I use what's called a story map to plot out the beginning, middle, and end of my story. I plot out those key scenes, that opening scene, the inciting incident, major plot points. Those are those major obstacles that our ancestor overcame. And then the climax of the story, that obstacle that they finally achieved. And then we have the following action and the closing scene. All of these we put on our story map. Now, step 5 is to take the skeleton of that story map, that outline, and begin to fill in the pieces in between those important scenes. And I do this on a storyboard. And on the storyboard, I include every major scene along with all the scenes in between that will connect everything together. And finally, step 6 is to write. You got it. You're going to work your way through that storyboard, writing each scene that we have outlined on the storyboard. It kind of serves as a map to getting your first draft done. Now, once you've got your first draft completed, now comes the hard part. Now we have to start revising and rewriting and polishing that story. But we can't do that until we get that first draft done. So it's really important to do those first 6 steps. So that's 6 steps to a first draft. Thank you for listening. And actually, we're going to have a special edition of Storylines later this week. So keep a watch on your inbox. I'll see you then.